Alright, where to start this? So, in the last session of Summer of Myth, oh boy. So, the players return to the dwarf city of Stonevale, a city that last time they were in, they did not leave a good impression. On their first visit, they returned the magic bag to the nephew of the king that belonged to his brother. So originally there was the king, oh no, come on. So there's the king, and there's his brother. Oh. So the king and his brother, and it's the brother's son. The brother went off on an adventure, and he died. At some point, the party recovered his magic bag, which is effectively how to put it, it's a kind of a bag of holding, but it's also a demi-plane, where it just enables them to have whatever whatever space they need, pretty much to avoid having to have a whole thing where they buy a house. So the session began with their return to the city. They knew that they were not liked in the city, that everyone hates them. And they decide to lie. So they have every member of the party who has been in the city except for one. So all but one of them are inside the bag, except for the one person who didn't do anything, who wasn't being an awful person. So him and the new party member who just joined. So this guy has never been to the city before. So they just see the one guy who was with the people who cheated the nephew of the king out of his inheritance. They return, and because the people, they really, they see this and they think, okay, if it's just him, if he's the only one left, okay, we'll leave it a little bit peacefully. And they arrive at the inn they stayed at, or their intent was to just walk past and try to pass through the town, not stay the night at all. But the innkeeper waves them down, and he says, "Wait, you're with that group. You were a big group of people. You were 11 people. Where is everyone? Why is it just you now?" And this was at the end of the session before. But he starts off by saying, "Oh yeah, they everyone died," which is a bit. It's like, well, either he's lying and being a little bit odd, or this is a legitimate tragedy. So the owner of the inn's like, "Oh yes, please stay the night." And he asks what happened. And so this one, Parker, the ranger, he ends up kind of admitting that he brought the bodies back. And so, while it is possible to have a room in your magic bag be chilled, to have like a cold room, that would normally be so that supplies could be kept, they could keep longer. So technically, it would be possible, except he's a new adventurer. He doesn't have that room in his bag yet. So he's very confused because he just pauses and he stops and says, "You brought the bodies with you, because it has been a month's travel to get from where all the NPCs died. It has taken a month to get from there back to Stonevale. So that means the bodies have been in the bag for a month." And so the innkeeper, he's taken back. He's like, "You have them with you?" And he says that he has something that's keeping them from rotting. Now, there was a point before they went in, because they ended up fighting a dragon. In the last settlement they went to before the dragon, there was something he could have gotten that would effectively cast. Pretty much, it would be like a flower who, it's like if you took a petal and put it in the mouth of a corpse, it effectively just casts gentle repose on them for you. And it was until the petal like decayed or dissolved or whatever, it would prevent the body from rotting. They didn't take that plant. Instead, they decided to just move on. So what's actually been happening is, for the last month, every day, the sorcerer, Dara, has been casting Ray of Frost, and one of the druids, Coco, has been casting Ice Storm periodically, and they've just been keeping the bodies of the NPCs chilled. So that was the end of the session before. This session begins with, now that they're in a they've stepped inside the inn, like they've accepted the free night's stay. And the first thing Parker does is, now that he's had a week to think about what happened, the first thing he does is, like, after they've already sent to have the local, like, kind of like bishop of like Bahamut, like, to come and try to cast resurrection. After he's sent a runner to the church, oh goodness, the first thing that Parker does is he says, "Oh yeah, only these guys, like the NPCs, only the NPCs died. The rest of the party is just hiding in the bag." And he's just a bit flabbergasted. But this was only that they'd just gone into they were inside the inn. They weren't in a private area of the inn. So some of the regulars kind of hear that mentioned, but they just kind of keep their heads down. And so things seem to be going fine. The cleric of Baphomet, he arrives, and he sets to work. He gets there, and shortly after he arrives, there's like a small semblance of, like, you can kind of hear what's going on outside the bag. When you're inside, you can just barely. And Nova, like the other druid, he passed his perception check to hear them getting ratted out. And he leaves the bag. He leaves the bag. And he's there. He pops out just in time to, like, and he tells the cleric, "Oh yeah, don't bother with these three. I've already tried." He tried to cast Revivify, and it was the NPC that was the leader of this adventuring company. He did not want to be brought back. He was so just angry with them. The elf, Corellian, has already taken him. He's like he was ready to go to Corellian, and he was ready just to go. And the dwarf. So yeah, it was a human, an elf, and dwarf. The human, he refuses to be brought back. Because the way I pretty much to avoid having issues with downed players rolling death saves and just being bored, it's that they face the wall between life and death. It's that they're in this space and they'll face the kind of ghosts, or like the souls of those who are dear to them on the other side of the wall. And it's in part, it's like some of them will say, hey, come join us, like let's be happy in the afterlife, and others will say will be like, no, there's still more left for you to do over there. And so it's the human, the leader of the party, he mad, and he's effectively decided that he is going to stay on the other side, and he's going to stay over there. Like, he is going to remain there, and he is going to be very angry and he will not let them cross the wall. This may or may not be plot thing for later. The dwarf that they tried resurrecting, he had his own reason for not wanting to come back, and it was that he was satisfied with how he thought things were going to go, which is a very specific thing that, in case my players watch this, I don't want them to know. So let's see. So all that's left are these 3 human NPCs that, because I didn't want the focus to be on like the entire part, I wanted to be focused on the players, not on all the NPCs that were with them. So I just never even really spoke about these characters. These other 3, they are all these 3, they've been dead a month. They are at peace. I think they're either at peace or they have found their peace. So the cleric of Bahamut, he ends up, like, he shakes his head. He's like, no, like, none of them are willing, and he leaves. What ends up happening is his, like, apprentice or acolyte ends up coming with him, and he says, because he sees how disappointed his master is, and he says, did it work? Like, were any of them returned? And he just shakes his head and tells him no. And then and he says, but that was very quick for it to have been. He says, like, how much? It must have been 10 people. How was it that quick? And he explains 3 of them. He explains that half the party is still alive, and that one of them had already tried to bring back 3 of them. And pretty much the way I ruled it was, he knew for a fact that the human would not come back, and he was trying to cast Revivify on the elf, but in indirect terms, I pretty much explained, Corellian is like choking your soul if you keep, like, Corellian will, like, squeeze tighter if you keep trying to bring him back. Uh, and so he ends up giving up, and since he's pretty much close enough, he's able to move his hands over to try to be bringing back the dwarf instead. And the dwarf is just like, nah, I'm good. So the acolyte, he now knows, oh, all of the bad people who tried to steal, which, yes, I don't think I went into enough detail. So it's these like magic bags. It's like a bag of holding, but infinitely better. And it ends up being attuned to someone pretty much, but it doesn't take up an attunement slot. But it's whoever it is attuned to, they are the owner. And this attunement is different. It takes a long time to have it set up. More than just the normal 1 hour focusing on it. But also they have passwords. Now the party only has access to one bag because they don't need 6 different little bases of operation. They only need one. So they've shared the password to the bag, but Parker is the one who owns the bag. And it's because of that Parker is able to pick up and move the bag if as a security feature. Because pretty much it's that artificers have seen the value of a bag of holding and they've just worked on it like crazy. Because imagine if this worked a little bit more like just a normal bag of holding, if it didn't require that bond to it, if you could just pick it up and you could just turn it inside out, and then literally everything you have, this all your supplies, all your treasure, all your gear, everything spills out into this huge pile of stuff. Not the normal what was it, 10 by 10 by 10 foot cube, or 5 foot by 5 foot by 5 foot. Just everything just gone. Everything just spilled out there. So it's this security feature of it's stuck to where wherever it is set down, or whatever it if you entered it with the command word and you were holding it, it effectively just flops to the ground. Which is the downside to these, if you always have to bend down to pick it up. But so it's everyone's just hiding in there. And it's the only way that you can walk up to a bag and pick it up and move it immediately means that either no one owns it or the owner is dead. And it's effectively, they at an earlier point they found a few bags that they were able to pick up, and the NPCs kind of explained this, these belong to some lost adventurers, and it's effectively, that is the adventurer's will, last will and testament. That is it, but it's manifest. It is the true and binding version of it. Of the only way that you get this, that you get the treasure inside, is if you are truly the heir and you know the passwords. So on their journey they encounter one, and it is the true heir, so he knows the passwords. And this is the nephew of the king. And he starts off this negotiation of how much reward do you get, and a reasonable amount is somewhere from a sixth to a fourth. If there was a negotiation of how much was in there, if it was for instance, if it was some very poor family and you're trying to negotiate, it's well, I don't, it's if it's below a certain amount, I only want a tenth. If it's above a certain amount, I will take a fifth. Say if there's less than 100 gold, I will take a tenth. If there's more than 100, I'll take like more than 100 by a reasonable margin, I'll take a fifth. Just this like find a way to like be a good person that's negotiating. The not prince, the nephew, he off the bat he is offering 50% plus some. He's offering 1 half of all the treasure that the bag contains, as well as a bunch of these. It's not a standard form of currency. It's really just that they don't put it in bars. So it's this dwarf city of Stonevale. It pretty much they mined out an entire mountain. So it just looks like it's these like hilly plains and then a flat spot that's like in this like mountain valley, and then hilly plains on the other side. They mined out the entire mountain as if it was Minecraft. The mountain is gone. So they've mined through all that stuff, and they've had plenty. Like they found tons and tons of pure silver, which is pretty much it's any time that you would normally use silver. This is an enhanced version of it. So it's it does it does extra radiant damage for anything that would normally anything that would be classically vulnerable to radiant. It's like stuff for like protection from good and evil. Like anytime you use it as like a spell component or like for like a mirror or something, it just makes it better. So they have a ton of this stuff, and because they don't like if they just have it in if they had it in like ingots, they've got no real use for it. So they turned it into these coins, and most of the time it's only ever used in the city, or if you're in some other dwarven city. But it could be used for better stuff. They just haven't looked into it at all. So he offers half of the contents of the bag and some of the pure silver, like, and some of his own pure silver coins that he has. Like, this is like you have brought like closure to this like lingering question about whether or not my father is alive. I am offering you half of my inheritance. The party demands more. I think he offered 100 pure silver coins. They wanted 250. So the guy that was doing the bargaining, he stuck with 50 he stuck with half because there's no like either he would have to say like 2/3, which definitely makes him like puts him in the wrong. So he's not going above half, but he's clearly just asking for more pure silver coins. He has no clue how much those are worth. He has no clue, and yet he's perfectly willing to ask for more. So, oh boy. So, yeah, the acolyte of the cleric of Bahamut, the acolyte. Because I think it's in this like dwarf city, the king and his family are very well loved. And so finding these scumbags who cheated the nephew of the king out of his inheritance. They hate them. They just hate their guts. And finding out, a tragedy didn't befall them. It's just all the good people in that group died, and only the scumbags survived. So the acolyte is like, really? And he's like, how is that justice? He's mad, and he's heard a couple little whispers of people who've been saying hey, if anyone sees those people who stole from the king's family, like make sure everyone knows. And so the acolyte goes off, and he's like, hey, yeah, those those scumbag adventurers, yeah, they're alive. They're here in the city now. They're staying at the inn they were at last time. They're staying at like such and such inn. And so the party, they understand that they should not, like, specifically the guy who did the negotiating, Dara, the sorcerer. He understood to stay in the bag. He stayed in the bag. He did not let his face be shown. Until in the night, so Nova, I think, yeah, both the druids. Okay, so Xander, the Warforged fighter, he just like went and like he like just because he's the new guy, he wasn't involved in any of this. He just goes dormant in the corner, just in a chair, and then Parker, Coco, and Nova, they're staying in the beds in the room. And then Nova is woken up in the middle of the night by this strange smell. He sits up, and at first he doesn't realize it was the smell that woke him. He's just like what? He's like, why am I awake right now in the middle of the night? And then he smells it, and he gets up. He starts walking around, and then he feels something kind of like wet on his foot. He's like, he doesn't question it. He's just like, huh. And then he's like smelling around. He's trying to figure out where it's coming from, and he realizes it's coming from outside the room. He's like, is it left? Is it right? He's like, oh yeah, it's left. It's over here. And he's pretty sure it's coming out of the room across the hall. And he goes back, and he wakes everyone up. So he gets everybody, and they just kind of like he goes into the bag to get Sydney. This one, he goes into the bag to get him, and accidentally ends up waking up Dara because he didn't want to wake up Dara. Wait, why aren't you moving? So they're going. Hang on, I'm gonna have to stack them all into one spot. They're just in like a conga line pretty much, and they go over and they go over. They open the door. They're all kind of just vaguely spreading out. And so Coco, Circle of Stars druid, he starts to move over one way, and as he's like fumbling around trying to like feel around in the dark, Nova starts trying to he's like feeling around, and he's casting dark vision on himself. And it's as this happens that he sees Coco is grabbing, like he's standing next to this bed, and he's grabbing this handle, and he lifts it up, and Nova watches as this dark liquid just beads and drips off the end of the dagger. And Nova just like cries out, and Nova cries out. Coco drops the dagger, and finally, Dara decides, hey, let me cast light. He finally casts light. And the amazing thing that happens is they realize they were following a trail of blood, and they see the body. So the knife has fallen to the floor. Actually, wait, Harold and Xander were not in there. In fact, Harold was in the bag. So they're all here and they're just thinking, what? Like, what's going on? And as soon as Nova cried out and the dagger fell, Dara cast light, but they start hearing this like stomping coming up the stairs. And just as the guards are bursting in, Dara and I have to keep him visible for the light. Dara and Parker, like both say like the command word, and they disappear into the bag. But the guards did see someone. I'll grab a guard really quick. So we end up getting a bunch of guards. And so he's like concerned, like they start like backing away, and like Nova starts moving to the window. And Coco he's like trying to move over to try to see if he can also get in the bag. Until the guards like they see he's got blood on his hand from when he picked up the dagger out of the body. So first guard like pulls Coco out of the way. Second guard's coming up and he's checking on, because Sydney's character is a 3-year-old child, with the mind of a 14-year-old. So he's confused, trying to figure out what. So second guard's trying to figure out what to do there. Third guard is coming in. He's kind of obstructed by the guard child bed. So he's starting to check out the magic bag, and he like, because he sees just this bag laying on the floor. So he's trying to figure out what's going on there, and he tries to pick it up and it doesn't move, so he knows it's a magic bag. And he just yells into it. It's like, we know you're in there, because someone has to be in there. And so it's just there, and very, very, very stupidly, Daryl decides to come out of the bag. So it's he comes out of the bag, and then so fourth guard finally has something to do, so he grabs Daryl and he starts locking him up. And the particular decision that Nova made, hang on. Oh no, that's what it was. He chose to cast Thunderwave. And so he was like, his thought was, oh yeah, I'm gonna hit all the guards. So it was guard who's checking the bags. He rolls nat 20, and the way that I normally roll that for a saving throw is that if it's save or half damage, a nat 20 is you take no damage. So one of them rolls, like he passes the save, one of them fails the save. So you have all 3 stages there. Every single ally failed the save. So all of them end up taking like, I think it was like 15 damage. Let's see. I think it was about 15. It might have been 13. So it's every ally gets hit for that. And then because they're, hang on, is it that they? I'll push 10 feet away. So it's they're all kind of like stunned a little bit. But it's then then Nova decides, you know what, I'm gonna open the window, turn into a flying squirrel, and then glide away. Let me give him back his dark vision. And he does see there's like there's a bunch of other groups of guards just kind of milling about. These are supposed to be windows, by the way, not doors. So he sees that as he's gliding down these like 20-ish feet. He did not need to wild shape. He did not. And as he gets a little ways down, and then I remind him, you're a squirrel. You are like only a little ways away from the middle of the city. You are not gonna have a like it's gonna take you a while if you're trying to escape the city. And then he turns back into himself just a little ways down the street. Oh, and I forgot about the best part. The best part. Before he left, Nova was saying, I did it. I killed him and then ran. It's, well, sir, you are not the one who has blood on your hands. He does have blood on his feet, because he did step in some of the blood in the other room. Like, he stepped on some of the blood in here. But like if they had done things in like any other way. Now, yes, there will absolutely be some questions of they're gonna be like, hey, why were all of you in there? Because that's the thing is after they were restrained, I think so the guard that was taking care of Sydney brought him out there. That's Dawn, isn't it? Oh, it's Dawn. There we go. So guard was it guard number 1? He's taking care of the 3-year-old. He's taking him down. The guard that had just was the one taking care of Coco or the one taking care of Dara? We have Coco here, the Circle of Stars, Dara, the Wild Magic Sorcerer. I think it was one that had just who just locked up Dara. He went over and he found the like dormant Xander and woke him up. And then don't mind Harold here. He was in the bag, so he doesn't know what's going on. So it's the guard is still like yelling into the bag, so that is waking up Harold, but also Parker is just in there. He's like just not wanting to leave. So it's if Parker hadn't run, not Parker, if Nova hadn't run, he could have like just looked out the window and said, "Why are there so many guards out there?" And said like this, I could have like just figured out in it, like just could have seen all the guards and then said something, and then people would know this seems to have been a setup. But no. And then in Discord, after the session, so after they've had a day to think about what they've done, Dara and Nova decide to just start arguing. So it's they they should realize they've been framed. Why on earth would you claim, like, when you're clearly being framed? Why on earth would you confess to the crime that you did not commit? And then abandon everyone and run? There's no reason. Like, there is no rhyme or reason to this. He is just covering himself. Like, he's trying to look like the hero. He's trying to take the blame, and then running. Meanwhile, this is the same character that I have given my nemesis MacGuffin, where it's if something kills him, that thing becomes more powerful, and it saves, like, the artifact saves his life, but the negative energy from pretty much the power required to save his life incurs this, like, debt of power, and the debt of power is immediately given to the thing that killed him. So it's that thing becomes more powerful, and it'll just get, like, extra feats, and it'll end up becoming a recurring villain. And he is running off alone. And he used up a wild shape to be a flying squirrel. Oh yeah, and he doesn't have dark vision anymore. He casts Long Strider. So he is running in the dark in the city, and he has no clue what's going on. I do not know where this is gonna go. Oh, goodness. But hopefully they can somehow figure something out. In the meantime, 1d20.